welcome back to the Pursuit of Freedom series. If this is your first time here, I'm so glad that you found this space. I've created this video series as an extension of the Pursuit of Freedom podcast and workbooks so that we can dive even deeper into these important topics and take real, actionable steps towards your healing. My goal is to create a space where you feel seen, understood, and empowered to step into the freedom that you were truly created for. I know that healing can feel overwhelming at times, and I also know how easy it is to feel stuck in the same patterns over and over again. That's why I've created this series designed to be more than just information, but it's an invitation. An invitation to step into a new way of thinking, to challenge those old habits, and to embrace the kind of freedom that isn't dependent on perfection or performance. Whether you've been on this journey for a while or you're just starting out, I want you to know that this is a safe space for you to grow, to reflect, and to take steps forward, big or small, towards becoming the person that you were created to always be. Today, we're talking about perfectionism, a sneaky force that disguises itself as ambition or high standards, but in reality, it just keeps us stuck in cycles of self-criticism, exhaustion, and fear of failure. It convinces us that if we could just do more, be better, and to work harder, maybe we'll finally feel worthy, or maybe we'll finally feel like we've earned our place in this world. But the truth is, perfectionism isn't about striving for excellence. It's actually about fear. Fear of failure, fear of not being enough, fear of disappointing others. And that fear is what keeps us stuck in the cycle of proving, performing, and then exhausting ourselves to try and meet these impossible standards in our life. I want to help you untangle this unhealthy pattern, understand where it might come from, and most importantly, I want to help you be able to let it go so that you can finally embrace grace, progress, and the true freedom that you desire. Because life is not meant to be lived under the pressure of perfectionism. It's really meant to be experienced fully, messy, imperfect, and beautiful that it is. And when we learn to release the perfectionism, we finally make space for joy, creativity, and self-acceptance. So if you've ever felt like no matter how much you achieve, it's never enough, if you constantly feel the need to try and prove yourself, or if you find yourself holding back because you're afraid of not doing things perfectly, then take a deep breath, because first off, you're not alone, and today, that's what we're going to work through together. So let's dive in, because healing is a process, freedom is a choice, and transformation happens one step at a time. Perfectionism can feel like a motivator, and like the thing that pushes us forward to try and succeed, but the truth is, it's actually a trap. It keeps us striving, overworking, and doubting ourselves, making us believe that we have to earn our worth through flawless performance instead of just allowing ourselves to grow and learn and to embrace and experience life as it comes. We begin to measure our value by our productivity, by how well we meet the expectations of those around us, and by how perfectly we execute everything that we do. And when we inevitably fall short because we're human and perfection really is not possible, it leaves us feeling unworthy, ashamed, or like we'll just never be enough. And the worst part is that perfectionism doesn't just hold us back, it actually steals our joy. It makes us second guess our creativity, our decisions, and even our ability to relax and truly enjoy life. It convinces us that we have to do more, be more, and achieve more before we can finally truly just rest, or be happy, or to feel loved. But here's the truth. Perfectionism doesn't protect us from failure. It keeps us trapped in the fear of it. And that's really no way that I want to live. So for me, the word that always comes to mind when I think about perfectionism is performance. My entire life revolved around the idea that I had to perform well enough to be accepted, to be loved, and to be worthy. And I carried that belief into everything that I did: school, work, relationships, and even my personal healing journey. And we live in a world where success is expected of us every single day. everywhere we turn, there's pressure to be better, to achieve more, and to prove ourselves. It's exhausting. The weight of expectations can feel crushing, like a constant push to climb higher, run faster, and to do more, and to be better, without ever stopping to rest or to ask ourselves if we're truly living. We chase accolades, approval, and validation, believing that once we reach a certain level of success, then we'll finally feel like we're enough. But the finish line keeps moving, and no matter how much we accomplish, that sense of peace and satisfaction will just always feel like it's out of reach. And if you've ever felt like no matter how much you accomplish, it's still not enough, then you know exactly what I mean. That feeling of never being satisfied, of always striving but never arriving, is a telltale sign of perfectionism at work in your life. It tricks us into believing that our worth is conditional and that it's somehow tied to performance, achievement, or how well we measure up to those external standards. But friend, what if I told you that real success isn't about doing more or being perfect? What if true freedom comes from learning to let go and embrace imperfection and finally just give yourself the grace so that you can freely extend it to others? And here's the truth that I had to learn the hard way. Perfectionism is an illusion. It's a lie. It's fake. It's not real. And the harder that we try and chase it, the further that we actually get from real peace. We think that if we can just reach that next milestone and get that next accomplishment or that next level of success, then maybe, finally, we'll feel like we've made it. But the truth is, that finish line just keeps moving. Perfectionism is a mirage, something that we can see in the distance, but we never really can quite reach it. And in the process of trying to chase it, we often will miss out on the joy of being present in our life right here and right now. The reality is, the more that we try to control everything, to be perfect, and to make every detail perfect, the more that we're going to find ourselves exhausted, anxious, and disconnected from the things that actually matter: our purpose, our relationships, and our well-being. The peace we long for is not found in perfectionism. It's actually found in surrender and embracing who we are, flaws and all, and in knowing that we are already enough just because of who we are, not because of what we do. I've actually spent years believing that if I worked harder or if I did better, then I would finally feel whole. And I pushed myself to the limit in every single area of my life. Academically, professionally, personally, chasing a sense of fulfillment that always seemed just out of my reach. And for a while, I thought that I was doing everything right. But the truth is, perfectionism wasn't just a mindset for me, it was actually a way of survival. It had consumed me. It was pushing me to ignore exhaustion, pushed me through sickness, and it made me silence my own needs in order to try and meet these impossible standards and these impossible expectations that I was putting on myself. And what I didn't realize was that perfectionism wasn't actually making me any better. It was actually breaking me down piece by piece, and it nearly destroyed me, both physically and emotionally. The pressure that I placed on myself was relentless. I told myself that if I wasn't excelling, if I wasn't the best, then I was failing. And that fear drove me into the ground. It robbed me of every ounce of joy and peace in my life. It even made me question if I had anything left to give. And that fear drove me into the ground. It robbed me of every ounce of joy and every ounce of peace that was in my life. It made me question if I had anything left to give and if I was even worth any of it. And looking back, I can see now that I wasn't just striving for success. I was actually running from the fear of being afraid of never being enough. And that chase almost cost me everything. It almost cost me my life. And I want to share this part of my story because I know that I'm not alone in this. I know there are so many of you out there who feel the same pressure, who are constantly striving, constantly pushing, constantly believing that your worth is measured by your performance. But friend, perfectionism is not the path to peace. It's actually a cycle that's going to keep you running on empty, always chasing and never arriving. And I want you to know that there is another way, a way to let go, a way to breathe, and a way to finally step into the grace and freedom that was always meant for you. So during my senior year of high school, my health decided to take a drastic turn. My body literally started attacking itself, forcing me to slow down in every way that I've never done before. I had been so focused on pushing forward and on proving myself and on never letting up that I ignored every warning signal that my body was trying to give me. I kept telling myself that I could handle it and that I had to keep going and that stopping was not an option. But my body had other plans. It just shut down. I physically couldn't keep up anymore, and for the first time in my life, I was forced to stop, to surrender, and to face the reality that I had actually spent my entire life running from. Lying in a hospital bed, weak, exhausted, and completely drained from life, I realized something, and it changed everything for me. Performance didn't really matter. In the grand scheme of things, when you're looking at the end of your life, performance really doesn't mean a thing at all. It's pointless, it's meaningless. Success didn't really matter. The only thing that mattered to me was actually truly living. And at that moment, I had to ask myself, have I really been living my life, or have I just been performing? Have I been chasing some version of success that was never actually fulfilling me? Have I spent so much time trying to prove my worth that I've actually forgotten who I was and what I was doing all along? That was the moment that I knew something had to change in my life, because if I kept going the way that I had been going, perfectionism was going to break me. It was going to actually take everything from me. And here's what I learned. Perfectionism was never going to make me feel whole. It was never going to complete me. It was only ever going to keep me trapped. It made me believe that if I just worked hard enough, if I just achieved enough, then I would finally feel at peace. But in reality, the more I chased perfection, the further away I actually got from real joy and from real peace. The standards that I was setting for myself were impossible, and instead of bringing any sort of fulfillment, they really only led me to exhaustion, disappointment, and this never-ending sense of failure. So the moment that I realized this wasn't just a bad habit, but it was actually something that was controlling my entire life and dictating every decision, was actually when my body physically shut down. I had spent years pushing myself to the limit, ignoring every signal that my body was trying to tell me it was running on empty. I sacrificed everything. I sacrificed sleep, health, happiness, all just in the name of trying to be enough, trying to be worthy, trying to accomplish everything. But no achievement, no accomplishment, no validation ever could fill that void inside of me. Because perfectionism wasn't just a goal. It was a belief that I had to earn my worth. And that belief was actually crushing me. Maybe you've been where I was. Maybe you were constantly striving, constantly performing, constantly feeling like no matter how much you do, it just never feels like you're going to be enough. And if that's you, I want you to hear me. I want you to really, really hear me. Perfectionism is not the answer. It is not the thing that is going to bring you peace. It is going to be the thing that keeps you from it. And when you finally begin to let go of the pressure to try and be perfect, maybe then you'll start to discover something even more powerful. Grace. The grace to be human. The grace to rest. The grace to know that you are already enough just as you are. And this makes me think of the old toy that I used to have as a kid. I think it's called a Chinese finger trap. And you put your finger in both sides of it, and the harder you try to pull your fingers out, the tighter it actually gets, and you can't pull your fingers out. And it doesn't matter how strong you are, the more you force it, the more stuck you become. So the trick is stop fighting, let go, release the pressure, and then you push your fingers in, release the pressure, and then you can pull your fingers back out. That's actually what I realized about perfectionism. The harder I fought to meet these impossible standards in my life, the worse I actually was feeling. The more I pushed myself to perform, the more exhausted and disconnected I became. I was so consumed with being perfect that I lost sight of who I actually was. I measured my worth by my ability to meet expectations, by how flawlessly I could execute everything I did, and by how much approval I received from others. And the more I tried to tie my identity to this perfection, the more fragile I actually became, because any mistake or any shortcoming felt like it was more proof and more evidence that I actually wasn't enough. All along, it was all a lie. I was never going to be enough. And it was just a cycle of these lies going around and around and around, and that I would have to work harder and be better and be more perfect to then try to actually overcome the perfectionism. That's not how it worked. It actually wasn't until I let go, I released that pressure, and I stopped fighting, and I finally started to embrace myself and embrace my imperfection, that things started to begin to shift in my life. And let me tell you, letting go was not easy. It felt like I was losing control of my entire life. It felt like everything was falling apart and like I had failed at everything. But what I didn't realize at the time was that true freedom isn't found in controlling everything. It's actually found in surrendering to grace. And the more I gave myself permission to be human, the more mistakes that I allowed myself to make, the more times that I allowed myself to just learn as I went, the more peace that I found. And friend, that's what I want for you too. I want you to know that you don't have to try and prove yourself. You don't have to try and earn your worth. You are already enough, exactly as you are. And no level of perfection will ever make you more worthy than you are right now. Perfectionism convinces us that if we just try harder, we'll finally be good enough. But the truth is, we already are. You already are good enough, just as you are right now. Right now, as you are, in all of your imperfections, all of the struggles, you are already enough. The problem with perfectionism is that it makes us believe that we have to earn love and that we have to prove our value through these achievements or these flawless executions or meeting all of these impossible expectations. But really, the more we try and chase that idea of being perfect, the further away we're actually going to get from true fulfillment. It's like running on a treadmill. We're going to keep moving, but we're just striving. We're not actually ever arriving. So friend, I want you to know that you don't have to live under this pressure anymore. You don't have to exhaust yourself trying to prove your worth, because you are already created with it. The moment that we stop striving for perfection and we finally start embracing grace and embracing ourselves for who we are, that is the moment we begin to truly start to live. It's the moment that we start to breathe a little deeper, love ourselves a little more, and experience life in a way that is full. Not because we have reached some impossible standard, but because we have chosen to embrace who we are as we are. So let this be the moment that you set down the weight of perfection. Let this be the moment that you remind yourself that you are already enough. Not because of what you do or what you achieve, but simply because you are here. And you are loved, you are worthy, and you are beautifully whole, exactly as you are right now. And if you ever doubt that, and if you ever find yourself slipping back into that old pattern of striving, I want you to remember this. You were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be real, and real is already more than enough. And one of the hardest parts about letting go of perfectionism for me is realizing just how much of ourselves we might have lost in the process. For years, I had shaped myself into what I thought the world wanted me to be. I became an expert at reading expectations, at molding myself to fit all of those standards around me. And in the process, I actually abandoned all of the parts of me that didn't fit into these molds. But friend, you are never meant to fit into someone else's mold. You were created to be you, not a performance and not some version of you that you have deemed acceptable to other people, but the real, messy, beautiful, imperfect you. And I know that this can feel scary at times. When you've spent so long trying to meet these expectations and so long crafting these perfect versions of yourself, and you've been trying to be everything for everyone, and you're meeting all of these standards and you have achieved everything, it's really easy to forget that you're actually human underneath all of it. And who are you underneath all of those perfect versions of you? And the truth is, the version of you that doesn't have to strive, the version of you that is allowed to simply exist, that version of you is still enough. You're more than enough, actually. Everything about you is enough. You're perfect, you're worthy, exactly as you are. You don't have to keep striving. So when you start to embrace who you are, exactly as you are, without needing to meet these impossible standards, that's when something starts to shift. You stop living for the approval of everyone else, and you finally can start living for the joy and the peace in your own life. You begin to realize that life isn't about performing, it's about experiencing. It's about growing, and it's about becoming. And the more you lean into your authenticity, the more you begin to undo the grip of perfectionism on your life. So where do we begin? How do we start untangling years of conditioning and learn to love ourselves, imperfections and all? Well, the first step is to notice when perfectionism is creeping in, and then to recognize those moments when you feel the need to perform, or to achieve, or to prove your worth. When those thoughts start to arise, take a deep breath and ask yourself, am I doing this out of love for myself, or am I doing this out of fear of not being enough? Because real change starts with awareness, and then pausing long enough to question those beliefs is going to help you get out of that cycle. Then next, we have to learn to celebrate your progress, not just the perfection. Set realistic goals for yourself. Goals that are going to allow room for growth, room for learning, and room for mistakes. And when you start to reach any of these goals, any of these milestones, no matter how small they are, I want you to take a moment and acknowledge it. I want you to know that you are worthy of celebration, even on the small things. You don't have to wait until you've done everything flawlessly to then be proud of yourself. Every step forward, no matter how imperfect, no matter how small, is still worth celebrating. We also need to challenge the voice of self-doubt that tells us we aren't enough. Perfectionism thrives on negative self-talk, on the belief that we have to be constantly improving, constantly performing, or constantly meeting unrealistic standards. But friend, you don't have to accept that voice as your truth. Instead, try replacing that with grace-filled affirmations. This might sound something like, I am enough just as I am. I am worthy of love. I don't have to be perfect to be valuable. The words that we tell ourselves actually really matter. And when we choose to speak kindness over ourselves, we actually start to shift the way that we see ourselves and how we perceive our own worth. And finally, give yourself permission to rest and care for yourself without any guilt. Perfectionism tells us that we can only rest once we've earned it, and that we have to do enough or be enough before we can finally take a break, or before we can finally breathe. But that's just a lie. Rest is not something that you have to earn. Rest is something that you deserve. It is something that you need. It is something that you are allowed to take simply because you are human. And the more that you practice self-care, the more you will see that your value is not tied to how much you accomplish, but who you are at your very core. So let's take this journey one step at a time together. Let's start peeling back the layers of perfectionism and embracing the beautiful, imperfect, whole person that you already are. Because freedom isn't found in reaching perfection. It's actually found in realizing that you never needed it in the first place. Letting go of perfectionism is not about giving up. It's about freeing yourself to truly live. It's about embracing the truth that you are already enough and that your value is not found in what you achieve, but in who you are. It's about understanding that your worth has never been tied to your ability to perform or to succeed or to meet these impossible standards. It's actually about realizing that you don't have to earn any of this, and you don't have to chase all of these approvals. You are deserving of joy, peace, and fulfillment right here, right now, exactly as you are. You were never meant to live under the weight of perfectionism. You were meant to live fully, to experience life in all of its ups and downs. You were meant to grow and to learn and to evolve and to embrace every part of who you are without shame, without guilt, and without constantly feeling like you need to try and be more. You are already enough. You are already more than enough, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. And if you're struggling to believe that, if perfectionism still feels like it has a grip on you and it's really hard to let it go, I want you to know that you're not alone in this journey. Healing does take time, but step by step, as you start to release the need for control and you start to replace self-judgment with grace, and as you start to honor yourself with kindness and compassion, you will begin to feel lighter and you will begin to feel more free. I know this journey isn't easy and it requires unlearning years of deeply ingrained beliefs, but I promise you it's going to be worth it, and you don't have to do it alone. That's also why I've created a few digital resources to help you guys on this journey. I've created the Pursuit of Freedom and the Pursuit of Purpose workbooks, along with the Pursuit of Freedom podcast. So if today's message has spoken to you at all, I encourage you to dive deeper into these resources. The Pursuit of Freedom workbook will guide you step by step through breaking free from perfectionism, people-pleasing, and self-doubt, while giving you practical tools and exercises to help you transform your mindset and embrace grace. The Pursuit of Purpose workbook will help you step into the life that you were meant to live by helping you uncover your true passions, aligning your God-given purpose, and learning to walk confidently in your calling. And if you're looking for more encouragement and real conversations about all of these topics, the Pursuit of Freedom podcast is the perfect place to start. Each episode is going to be filled with personal stories, deep reflections, and actionable steps to help you continue your journey towards healing and freedom. So today, I want to leave you with this. You don't have to be perfect to be loved. You don't have to achieve to be worthy. And you don't have to prove anything to deserve peace. You are already enough just as you are, and that has always been the truth. Keep taking these small steps towards freedom every day. I want to finish today's video with praying over each and every one of you, and I want to invite God into your healing and your transformation. So, Heavenly Father, I come before you today and I lift up the heart of the one who is listening to this prayer and watching this video. Lord, you know them intimately. You see the weight that they have been carrying and the pressure to be perfect, the pressure to measure up and to prove their worth through performance and achievement. You see their exhaustion, their striving, their self-doubt that whispers that they aren't enough. But Lord, you never called them to live under this weight. You never asked them to strive for a love that was already freely given by you. So right now, Father, I ask that you would quiet the voice of perfectionism in their heart, and that you would silence the lies that keep telling them that they have to do more, be more, and achieve more to be worthy. Lord, I pray that you would remind them that their worth was never found in their accomplishments, but in who they are, and they are your beloved child. Lord, I pray for a release of the pressure that has kept them bound, the pressure to always be strong, to never make mistakes, and to meet impossible expectations. I ask that you help them let go of the need to prove themselves and to rest in the truth that they are already enough, already loved, and already cherished by you. God, I know how easy it is to tie our identity to our performance and to believe that our value is measured by what we do. But I ask that you break this belief today, Lord. I pray that you would replace this striving with peace. I pray that you would replace the fear with confidence. And I pray that you would replace the perfectionism with grace. Lord, I pray that you would teach them to embrace the beauty of imperfection and to see mistakes not as failures, but as opportunities to learn and to grow. Jesus, I pray that they would begin to see themselves through your eyes, not through the harsh lens of self-criticism, but through the lens of love, compassion, and grace. Lord, I pray that they would understand that perfection was never the goal. freedom was, and that they don't have to perform to be accepted, and they don't have to hustle for their worth, and they don't have to try and meet impossible standards to be loved, because they are already loved in you. Lord, I pray for healing over the parts of them that have been wounded by this pursuit of perfection. I ask that you would mend the places where they have felt unworthy, unseen, or not good enough. Lord, I pray that you would remind them that they are deeply valuable, not because of what they can achieve, but because you created them with purpose, with intention, and with infinite love. Lord, I pray that you would help them to surrender the need to control every outcome and to let go of the fear that if they don't hold everything together, then it will all fall apart. Lord, I pray that you would help them trust that you are the one holding it all together, and that they are safe in your hands, and that they can release the weight of trying to do all of it on their own. And Lord, I pray that as they begin to let go, that they would step into a new kind of freedom, the kind that comes from fully embracing who they are exactly as they are. The kind of freedom that allows them to breathe deeper, to laugh more, and to live fully. The kind of freedom that allows them to step out of fear and step into joy, and to step out of pressure and into peace, and step out of striving and step into grace instead. So today, God, I declare over them that they are enough right here, right now, and that they are not defined by their performance or their achievements. Lord, I declare that they are deeply loved simply because they are yours. Lord, I declare that they are free to embrace imperfection, knowing that grace is always greater than their mistakes. And they are walking into a season of rest, renewal, and peace. Lord, I thank you for the transformation that is already beginning. I thank you that they are loosening their grip on perfection and opening their hands to receive the grace that has been theirs all along. I thank you that they are no longer going to exhaust themselves trying to be perfect, because they were never meant to carry that burden. Let today be the day that they step into a new way of living, a way that is lighter, freer, and more filled with joy, a way that allows them to trust, to rest, and to live in the fullness of who you created them to be. I bless them with peace, with self-acceptance, with unshakable confidence in who they are in you. And I pray all of this in your beautiful, powerful, and freeing name of Jesus. Amen. Be blessed.